Bapak dan Ibu, selamat siang. So, you had a good lunch? Yes? Anyone have a bad lunch? No. Okay, good. So, I'm just wondering, we're going to be, or at least I'm going to share with you some experiences I had with setting up a startup, but also working from within a corporate environment. You can see I'm wearing a rather corporate uniform on here. I'll explain that later. So how many of you actually work within a large corporation, let's say more than 1,000 people? So it's maybe a quarter of you. And the rest of you work within a startup, let's say less than 100 people? No? Just one. Oh, very lonely over there. Yeah. Good. This one, good. So what I want to share with you, but also discuss with you, because I'd like to hear your experience, is how do you set up a startup from within a larger corporation or from within an established business, and somehow make it successful. So I want to share two examples and then ask some of you, since a quarter of you work within large corporations, maybe to discuss some of your examples. Okay, so my name is Thierry Sanders. I'm the CEO of a company called Mekar. Mekar means blossom in Indonesian, and we are blossoming. We are just starting to blossom. We are a young company, and but the formal name of Mekar, as you know, most Indonesian businesses start with PT something or UD something, CV something. So our formal name is PT Sampurna Wirausaha. So we are part of the Sampurna organization. Sampurna Strategic is the holding, and so there's always this tension of setting up this new company within this larger entity. But I first want to go back 12 years earlier. Let's see if this works. Yeah. So around 12 years ago, I set up a not-for-profit called Bid Network. We were looking for entrepreneurs from emerging markets, from Asia, Africa, Latin America. And we had a matchmaking platform with around 60,000 different investment propositions. And although our team was quite small, we had a team of only 20 to 30 people. We had a massive network across the world using this online community. It was at the time that Facebook was still called the Facebook, and it was only just starting to get popular within the Ivy League places. So we had to create our own sort of online Facebook for small businesses. And this became extremely popular, and we were one of the first players in the world to organize business plan competition globally. And every time we did a call, we'd get like 3,000 people submitting propositions, and we'd have to find investors for them. So I decided we're telling all these entrepreneurs to run their business profitably, but we are actually a not-for-profit. It's kind of hypocritical. So I said, okay, we should actually set up a separate company. So we set up the Bid Exchange, and which was the company that would then take the web platform of Bid Network. And so I resigned from the charity, and I, within the same office, we had the two rooms in the corner. We set up this commercial company. I got some money from Indonesia, from Putra Sampurna. Got some money from a charity or a donor in the Netherlands, and we got started. And very quickly, this whole tension started between the existing charity, which I was no longer running, and they were demanding, what are you going to do to our web platform? You're going to create something new, and we need to ensure that the requirements are exactly what we need, and you are stealing our, let's say, our web platform into this commercial company, and God knows what is going to happen to it. So this whole tension started between actually two very small organizations. One was new with 5 people, and it grew up to maybe 20 people, and Bid Network, which had 20, 30 people in it. And so this whole list of requirements started, a whole battle, just to put it in more Indonesian terms, a battle started between these two small entities, planning resources. So you need some of my stuff. Okay, you have to tell me how much you need per month in how many hours, and what are you going to pay for it, and you're commercial, so we're going to charge you a bit more. Anyway, this whole it got off to a very rocky start. So we actually realized the only way to do this properly is to completely separate out, set up a separate office somewhere totally different, work on a completely new product. So actually the first 3/4 of a year was wasted fighting, and only really after 1 year of existence of this of BidX did we have the room to develop separate from the mother, or so-called mother company, birth company, the not-for-profit Bid Network. Now, if we look at Microsoft saw a big opportunity in the whole gaming industry. Saw Nintendo coming up, Wii is becoming very successful. So they wanted to create this new gaming console, and there was also the question: how are we going to set up this new company with this hip new software that is supposed to appeal to kids? And here we are in our suits. You know, Steve Ballmer is a really charming kind of guy, dictating what this company should do. So they actually decided, okay, get out of our corporate environment, set up your own company. The CEO, you have the mandate to do whatever you want, and get it going. So it's actually by this separation, it has actually become quite a success. Although it's a Microsoft product. So about 6 years ago, I met Putra Sampurna. We bumped into each other, not really accidentally, but you see he's also wearing the same Sampurna uniform, and he's a real entrepreneur, but he's also a real tyrant, you know, a real autocrat, dictates how the whole company works. And yeah, obviously, you know, there's this big building in the middle of Jakarta. There's buildings and plantations everywhere across the country. So you think, okay, he asked me, could you come and help me turn around this company called Makar that I have, and let's start afresh, set it up as this new startup. And but there I met this man, very powerful personality, very demanding. I entered the building for the first time 4 years ago, and you know, it's all glamour and money. And yeah, so it was almost 12 years ago that he sold his tobacco companies and reinvested a lot of the, I think, $5 million into bank, into plantations, into timber, and his own foundation. So yeah, it's. I said, how are we going to structure this? Where are you going to? Who's going to own the startup? So he said, well, you know, maybe it should be the bank, but yeah, actually, I want you to set up a financial services company from Makar, which is going to compete against my own bank. So I said, well, then we can't have the bank as the owner. So how do we do it? Because Sampurna Agro is plantations, doesn't make sense. Samco Timber is a timber company, doesn't make sense. oh well, okay, let's just hang it under the foundation, because that's not really threatening, and you just report to me. But so I come to his office, and we start discussing the plans for what the service should be. Now, this diagram here is not from anything related to Makar, but this is the kind of drawing that he had actually worked on for probably a couple of days or weeks, of how he envisaged that the whole process of Makar should work. So he had a very, very clear idea. Okay, it's going to start here, and it's going to go through all this flow and end up somewhere here. So I thought, oh gosh, this is going to be really tough. You know, how am I going to create the room for maneuver in a startup if this is already so worked out? So I said, Paputra, this is not going to work like this. You know, I'm either going to step on the plane back to Holland now, or you're just going to have to give me more room, and we're going to have to define where the limitations are of what you where you allow me to play in, and what is, let's say, not allowed on the outside. So he then said, well, okay, yeah, under the foundation, so, you know, again, everything's very structured. You have the education side, which is now Sampurna University. You have women's co-ops. You have a donation, a zakat charity arm, and then you have this entrepreneurship arm. So everything again is very, very structured. So I said, okay, but I'm reporting to you, so why should we put this into the chart to start with? So first thing I did was say, okay, I'm going to move out of the building. We're going to set up an office in Cilandak. So it's 9.2 kilometers away. Google Maps last night said it was 22 minutes, but usually it's at least 45 minutes. So I'm just going to take my first layer off. There goes my mic. Okay, and what do I do with this? So anyway, we moved away from the Sampurna Strategic Building, just to give myself some breathing space and not have Sampurna Strategic holding people looking over my shoulders. Sorry about this. You know what? You can probably all hear me without the mic, so okay. So this was like a safe distance. I said, Paputra, I'm not going to see you except maybe maximum once a week, and maybe more about fun things, and then once a month we'll discuss how we're progressing, and how I'm spending your money, and what the results are looking like. So we also made a very simple rebranding, just make it a little bit more modern. So we had we also introduced, thanks also to Hugo's help, trained Papandu here and some of my other colleagues in how to organize Scrum and sprint sessions. We actually had Post-its all over our walls, but then we realized that we didn't have enough wall left, so we decided to use Trello. So we have Trello boards where we basically run our sprints and our Kanbans in. So we're sort of slowly changing the culture, and no uniforms. So I'm just going to take off my next layer. Don't worry, it's not going to go very far. So, yeah, Clark Kent takes off his last his shirt. Yeah. So anyway, no uniforms anymore at the office. Yeah, on this day, of course, there was a dress code, as you can see, and a nice small team. And so the question is then, okay, we managed to create this space for us as a startup to develop and to flourish, to Makar, as the name says. So where can we extract maximum value from the corporation? So it's almost like we went through a phase of becoming a teenager and saying to the parent, like, I really want to leave home because you're always bitching at me, and you know, you're always telling me what to do, and so I'm going to leave. I'm going to finally go to university. So you know, if you're living in Jakarta, of course, you look for the university in Papua, nice and far away. But anyway, at a certain point, you realize, oh yeah, but you may need some money as when you go to university, and it may be good to sometimes take your washing home with you. So I've just put here where we are still very thankful or grateful to, let's say, the corporation which sits around us. So one of the first things, of course, in developing the products and the services for what we do, which I'll explain in a minute, I haven't done that yet, is Bank Sampurna, who helps us with all the market stats, the benchmarks, how other competitors are doing that. We of course have our chairman. The chairman, of course, has money, and make sure that we are well funded. And there has to be at least one commissioner from the Sampurna side. And the really good thing is that the commissioner has a massive network. So he actually goes with our sales director to sales pitches, and having a relatively unknown name, unknown brand with a very well-known brand sits very well with potential clients. So our commissioner is actually a bit of a salesman with us. And we have a corporate lawyer within Makar, but at a certain point it's sort of some of the questions are too complex for him. And so we use the legal team of the holding whenever possible. And yeah, whenever we do like focus group sessions, we actually work a lot with high net worth individuals in Indonesia. So it's very nice to use the Sampurna strategic facilities to offer them a dinner or a lunch or have a discussion with them, and they often like to come because the environment's nice to discuss things in. And of course, throughout the organization, you have a big network which you can tap into. So our shareholder, which is the foundation, is really just making sure that our numbers make sense. The audits are carried out for us, which which we always consider to be a bit troublesome. But at the end of the day, when we want to raise additional funding and investments from external investors, we have to make sure that these things are really up to scratch. And the good thing is that these three entities all need to be top notch. So you have like Deloitte, EY, accountants. So while you're a freewheeling startup here, you have to sort of meet sort of corporate standards. So I have not told you yet what we do, which I'll just, since you're sitting here, I'll use this moment to do a quick commercial break. Okay, so there are many small businesses in Indonesia. There's 57 million micro and small and medium-sized businesses in this country. And I would say around 5 to 7 million of them may have access to internet. But the other 50 million don't know where to really find finance. So they're very reliant on loan sharks or maybe very local cooperatives, which are not charging market conform rates. So what we've done is we find local cooperatives across the country which have, for example, women businesses that need finance, and we will publish their loans on our platform and sell those loans to the wealthier Indonesians. So if you are interested in investing in small businesses and you want to earn 8.5% after tax instead of 5.5% at BCA, then I'm saying BCA because that's the bank that I use. So 8.5% with a guaranteed principal, then you go to makar.id, and at the moment it's 8.5%, but towards the end of this year we hope to offer you around 15% with a guaranteed principal. Now, the other side, so we have one business on this side. On the other side, there are many offline small businesses that need all sorts of services, not just finance, but insurance. Maybe they want to put their business onto Facebook or onto Google Maps. Maybe they need an online bookkeeping system. So what we do is we use Facebook to acquire agents, so that can be you and me, who with their smartphone, with Facebook Messenger, use a chatbot which we've created so they can walk into the small business and they can start entering the data that we need to be able to offer the insurance, the finance, or the online services. So with that data, we will sell the lead on an e-commerce platform for parties that can actually deliver the service. So at the moment we are doing finance and insurance, or we will be doing insurance soon. And so we have financial institutions which are offering those services. So that's essentially what we do. We raise funds and we deliver leads at the other end. So this country, Indonesia, is huge. You have 6,000 inhabited islands here. There's a lot of water in between. So to be able to offer a service across the country, it's going to be very expensive to set up branches everywhere. So the only real way to do this efficiently is through, let's call them mobile agents or digital agents with smartphones who can actually identify the leads. Okay, so we now gotten to the stage where we are delivering our services, and we have been helped by Equipa to change the way that we work. But what we're also noticing now is that the Sampurna organization comes to us as a startup to ask for advice, because we are doing things differently than they are, and they're noticing that we're doing things sometimes faster than they can deploy. So, for example, yesterday, a consultant team from BCG and Sampurna Bank came to us asking, okay, how did you guys develop that app so quickly, and where do you find the people that can do things that quickly, and what's your method? So, so now we're seeing that instead of extracting the value from the Sampurna organization, we're starting to deliver as well. The same for Equipa. So Equipa was not a formal entity. So we helped this young company to start, and it will be very soon its own entity. Same with Sampurna University has an incubator, a business school. So there's also advice going in that direction. So to finish off, what I want to say is that you have this, maybe this big, powerful corporation behind you, and as a young startup, you have to use the value of that big corporation, so that you can cut your own course through the wave. And that's my son up there. So he's the agile guy on the corporate wave. So how do you convince someone like that? Well, you're not to be honest, you're not only dealing with let's say the father figure or the patriarch of the whole entity, but you're also dealing with his son and his daughter and his wife, and so it's almost like a mega family business.
Yeah, that's what that's also.
And they also have their own interests. Because Paputra was a heavy smoker. He also ran a tobacco company, and he did smoke his own brand of cigarettes. So, but he quit now. So someone who is a heavy smoker may not last long. So one of the really important things, I'm Dutch, so I'm pretty blunt about these things. This is also how I talk to him sometimes. So. The question is, what happens if he passes away? Right in the middle of that, we are about to, become profitable, raise a new round of funding or whatever. So we have to deal with this. So we have actually made agreements on if he passes away, there will be no change to the strategy and direction of the company or the way of working until we reach profitability. Once it reaches profitability, Paputra thinks his son and daughter won't want to change the course because it doesn't want to rock the boat because it's getting to profitability. So so that's one side of the story. The other is, you agree on a time slot and you have to show that you can deliver within that time slot. And so it's just also a question of faith and trust. Yeah. So this and openness. So being I think one very important thing in my meetings with him is just being very frank about where things go wrong and how you think you're going to fix it. Yeah.
Thanks.
So he knows that you're honest. Yeah.
Do you think you could have done the same thing by staying within the organisation?
No.
You've been limited by all the traditional process and heavyweight governance? Perhaps?
Yeah, so there's ISO standards in the organization. There's meetings every Monday about what is happening across the whole corporation, which is totally irrelevant to what we're doing. No, I don't think we could have. And the other problem is we use vendors. There's two of them in the room, and if we are sitting in a simple office in the south of Jakarta, or we're sitting in Sampurna Strategic, there will be a difference in price. So And the other thing is we use agents who are really on the street. Some of them are collectors. Some of these people aren't. You can't really let into the Sampurna Strategic building, especially if they come in groups, in big groups. Yeah. No, but the governance. So the governance is another very important thing. So right now, the situation is a little bit tricky because there's only me. I have a board of directors. Pandu is one of the directors, and there's Paputra. So if anything goes wrong, either in the relationship, then something terrible may happen with the startup. So that is why we have both agreed that before the end of this year we will find a new investor, external investor with a well-known, a well-known investment brand. Could be like a SoftBank or a Goldman Sachs or something like that. Because they will actually force the governance into the matrix, which is not good in the first phase, but is important in the next phase. Yeah, so that's another thing. If I would be reporting to someone else further down the line, it would have been impossible to create this space. Yeah.
So like if you're dealing with the sons, how
Yeah, exactly, because the father can decide that the son's opinion wasn't the right one and may change the course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Well, I actually was asked to come into the company when it was already a standing operation, and so I actually decided to fire the whole team, and so I had to get approval for that, of course, and so I just kept I think 2 people, and they were the administrators of the finance department, just to process all the severance payments. And then the next step was to start, okay, who are we? So I found a CTO from the Netherlands who I brought with me, and then we just started from scratch. Yeah. But I have to say, in the last 2 years, almost more than half of the team has been renewed, because you're continuously looking for, okay, who is the right person to make this success. Yeah. So interestingly, Bank Sahabat Sampurna has a focus on small and medium-sized enterprises, and so do we. So you could say, well, there's a sort of competitive tension there, but at the moment, the bank honestly doesn't feel at all threatened by us. But they are starting to look at, okay, how can we actually sell some of our portfolio of loans onto the Makar platform, so that we get the principal back earlier, which we can then use to refinance more SMEs. So they're starting to look at ways that they can use us to either raise more funds, and they're also using our lead generation platform. So in other words, they're asking us to look for SMEs with collateral, which is one of their requirements, so that they get more borrowers. So in that sense, we're sort of, so if you noticed in the slide, we are actually not doing lending and collecting. We're doing everything else. But the bank is doing the lending and collecting, so we are very synergistic, even though we're a fintech company, with existing financial institutions. So maybe something to discuss with the Rabobank. All right. So have any of you had the experience of having to set up a totally, not a new project, because the project is different, but a new company within an existing corporation, and how is your story maybe a little bit different or the same as what I've just told?
You don't have accounting, you don't have tax, you don't have legal advisors. It's tough, but at the end of the day, it is also try and be flexible, and you may have an idea what the market wants. And believe me, with each interaction with your prospects, you'll need to shave a little bit on that proposition. And if you're not willing to listen, those people will not meet you again. That's the example outside of corporate infrastructure. The startup with corporate infrastructure was actually the ING Direct story. And again, I would be a lot firmer than what Thierry said. Basically, select your own team from the right out start. You don't waste time. That's what we did, and my bosses were ruthless therein too. What can you bring? So it was a mix of insurance knowledge, it was a mix of direct banking, and it was a mix of banking and consumer banking. And in those days, actually were a little bit of an island. They didn't really understand how the rest of the bank worked or how a bank worked, because it was either about a lending product sale or a liability product sale or a payment product sale. But how that all trickles in into capital management, into your cash liquidity predictions, no such thing. There it was clearly that if you don't do that, you're wasting your time, and one person can actually hold back a whole team. So we started with around 10, 12 seniors, and we had those seniors select their own team again, but making sure that their top senior management also scrutinized the recruitments that they did. But that was actually a lot more smoother, because you had all these pools of resources already, rather than basically starting on your own with only one business partner and that's it. But the thing is, in both cases, stick to your focus and don't get sidelined because of one or two hurdles that you encounter if you believe that you have the right service or product. Because if you start dwelling left, right, and center, then even after 2 or 3 years, I can tell you won't get there.
Thank you.
So your question is, did anyone face something like setting up a new organization within an organization or creating a startup out of a big organization? So I'm part of the tech team, so I don't have the bigger picture of it, but yeah, so in Gojek, we created our payment wallet, that is GoPay. So right from day one, the thought process was Gojek is an organization, and GoPay, we like right from day one while building the product and everything, the thought process and all, it was a startup and it was a separate entity that would be cross-cutting across all the products, Go Ride, Go Send, Go Car and all everything. So it was a separate entity right from day one when we created it.
Okay, but how much room for maneuver did you get, and what were like the constraints? So I have a couple of constraints. One is we will focus on access to finance for small businesses. We'll focus on small micro and family businesses. Won't be focusing on any of the like Kijora Ventures type tech firms or that kind of thing.
Yeah. So
and we work with agents. Yeah.
Yeah, so for us, for GoPay, it was, we had full room for maneuver. So we had all the existing Gojek products that can, can leverage GoPay, whereas we we will be integrating it with the different micro merchants and the offline partners and everything like it's. So we had full freedom to try out our own. It's not like, okay, you are part of Gojek, you are under the Gojek umbrella, so you are restricted to whatever is maybe the management of Gojek says, and also it wasn't like that. We had like full freedom. So yeah.
Okay, great. But you were given like a goal, I take it, that you have to provide a service
no.
for all the other services.
No.
It's really
we work independently. It's
fantastic.
So providing services is one part of it, but it's equivalently providing services to any Gojek
third party.
Yeah, to third party as well as equivalent to,
Right.
to any Gojek services.
Great.
So yeah, we are like open to integrations with other third party companies and all. Yeah.
That's your future. Excellent. Okay, any other experiences? We're going to wrap up in about 5 minutes. No? Okay, thank you very much. Terima kasih banyak.